everyone, welcome to this very rainy week. Rain always gets me in the mood for sewing, whether that be clothing or fuzzy sock plushies or really anything. So that's what we're going to be doing today. If you watched my last video, you know that I am currently recreating the costume that Maria sings I Have Confidence in The Sound of Music. In part 1, I made the gray dress that she's wearing, and today I'm going to be making the cropped jacket type thing. Currently, you're seeing me draft the pattern from an online guide on how to draft a simple bodice. I kinda just skimmed it, so that's why you're seeing me mess up so often. The guide was from sewguide.com, and they're a great resource for beginner sewer people like myself. Just make sure you actually read it, unlike me. I should probably mention that this is my third sewing project, and my first time drafting a pattern myself. I chose to draft the pattern with so little experience because the jacket is not all fitted, and I figured it would be pretty easy because, look at it. Now, there are several things wrong with the mock-up that I'm drafting right now. First, the armholes are way too tiny, which is, spoiler alert, going to be a lingering problem throughout this whole video. Also, the right edge of the neckline should preferably be way closer to the neck. Lastly, the back panel should be much broader at the shoulder blades. Some of these problems I fixed, some of them I didn't. I cut out my pieces, then proceeded to draft the sleeves, which I did by tapering the top of the arm width down to the cuff width in a large trapezoid shape. Here's the sleeve pinned to the bodice. When I tried that on, I found that the shoulder seam was a bit more square than I would have liked, which was an easy fix. Because the jacket in the movie looked kind of like a thick wool, but I didn't want to spend that much money, I opted for burlap, which looked kind of similar and was extremely cheap. However, it frays like crazy, which I knew getting into this. I just moved it a couple times and this is what happened. So what I decided to do is iron on a whole lot of fusible interfacing to give the fabric something to hold on to prevent fraying. It took absolutely forever because the interfacing needed medium-high heat and the burlap was polyester, so in order to not start any fires, I tried to iron it on the synthetic setting, which didn't work so well. But notice how I did not make a new mock-up with all the new changes. Instead, I proceeded onto the final jacket and ended up undercompensating some of the adjustments. So anyway, I proceeded to cut out my fabric on the interfaced burlap. There's probably better ways to prevent fraying, this is just what I could come up with, but it didn't work so well because the interfacing kept peeling up, so would not recommend. Then I cut the front panel in half so that it would be a jacket, and then I went on to cutting out the sleeves. When I was originally drafting the sleeve pattern, for some reason I could not envision what a sleeve would look like, not in tube sleeve form, so it took a lot of brain power to make this trapezoid. After cutting out all the pieces was finished, I stitched the front pieces to the back panel with my $25 mini sewing machine from Amazon, which took quite a beating from all the sewing in this project. Then I stitched the sleeves into tubes. And I stitched the shoulders together, as well as setting and hand sewing in the sleeves. At this point, I tried it on and discovered that all the problems I'd identified in the mock-up and that I thought I fixed were back. So basically, this jacket was extremely uncomfortable to wear in the whole shoulder and back area. To try to fix this, even though it's a pretty fundamental problem, I stitched the sleeve to the jacket a little farther down to enlarge the armhole a bit. I unpicked the original stitches and cut away as much bulk as I safely could. So basically what I did is I made the armpits larger. The back is still really tight, but the only way I can fix that is by literally redoing the whole entire thing, and I don't really feel like that. So I think I can live with it. The body of the jacket is basically done now. I can move on to lining in the collar and all these edges that are a complete mess. several off-camera adjustments to the armholes later, I gave up and moved on to the collar, like I said, which I cut from some scrap fabric, then sewed it and spent an eternity trying to turn it. Eventually, I was able to do it, and I hand-stitched it to the jacket because it was too thick for the machine. Here's what it looks like stitched on, and can we take a minute to acknowledge that crazy fraying? It's insane, and that's probably the reason the jacket's so small, because I didn't leave enough room for it all. Next, I stitched together a quick lining from some muslin. It looks pretty similar, but it fits way better than the real jacket, because just as an experiment, I enlarged the back and the arm's eye. And I began whip stitching the lining to the jacket. Okay, so I'm halfway through stitching on the lining. I tried it on, and with the lining, it is way tighter than it used to be, like to the point where I don't think I'll be able to wear it comfortably, so I'm kind of torn at this point because it'll take a lot more work, but I really want to remake it because, like, if it's not going to be comfortable to wear, then what's the point in making it? So, the only problem is I won't have the interfacing from this because I used up all my interfacing on here. So, so the burlap's probably going to fray way more than it did on this one. But if that always fails, I could always just keep on using this one, so yeah. So I did everything up to making the collar again with the same alterations I made on the lining, minus the hours I spent struggling with the armhole. Okay, so I salvaged the collar from the original jacket, and it took approximately 10 years to unpick. But the only problem is, it is way too small for the new jacket. So what I'm going to do is, I have this little extension piece that I just made from some scraps, and what I'm going to do is, I'm just going to cut this in half, insert this, just so that it gives it a bit of length, and it will be covered by my hair when I'm wearing the jacket, so because it will be on the back, so it'll look a little funny, but it'll be okay. As I said, I cut it in half and inserted that extension piece. Here's what it looks like after sewing. It's not the neatest thing, but it's functional, and that's what matters. And here it is sewn to the new jacket. Then I began the tedious task of unpicking all my tiny whip stitches that were securing the lining to the old jacket. Come to think of it, it would have probably been more time efficient if I'd just made a new lining. Then I redid all those whip stitches on the new jacket. I found some buttons that looked similar to the ones in the movie, then sewed them on, except I didn't make any buttonholes because that would have been a fraying nightmare, but the top button still needed to be functional, so to kind of get around that, I sewed 2 snaps where the button was so that it would still be able to close. With that, the jacket was basically finished. So here's the whole outfit put together. I really like how it came out, and I think the risks that I took with this project paid off. Going into it, I was extremely daunted by working with a real sewing pattern, then drafting my own pattern, but overall it came out really nice. It's not the most comfortable thing in the world. The dress fabric isn't very soft, and all the facings, I still don't know what they do, are really uncomfortable, and also the jacket back is still too tight. The fact that the fleather sleeves are there probably doesn't help either. You can't really tell in these photos, but the right sleeve is quite a bit longer than the left, and the left side of the jacket is longer than the right. I really do not know how that could have happened. The whole collar area is also kind of strange, but you're not able to see it when my hair's down. Most of this probably could have been avoided if A, the burlap didn't fray so much, and B, I had a pattern for the jacket, but nobody seems to like these cropped jacket things because I couldn't find a pattern on the whole of the internet. Anyway, most of these flaws I pointed out are things that most people would not see just by looking at this, so I don't count them too highly. I hope you enjoyed the video. Feel free to subscribe if you haven't already for more sewing videos, fuzzy sock plushies, crochet tutorials, and whatever else I feel like doing. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!